Good evening, council and staff. It's 7 p.m. We will get started with this digitally enabled meeting, special council meeting of the Municipality of North Perth Budget 2021. Welcome everyone and thank you for your participation, be it all virtual. Tonight we will, for council, we will not be using eScribe. We will instead be voting in WebEx. Pat will be helping me with the voting in WebEx. So you'll use the chat function in WebEx if you are opposed to any of our votes tonight. This is our fourth of 6 planned budget meetings. We've been through all the capital. Tonight we will be going with the comprehensive corporate operating budget and going through each of our senior staff will be presenting their operating budget, and we'll be looking for some discussion and questions from council along the way with that. So welcome everyone. Thank you for your participation, and for Terry Seiler and Deputy Mayor Doug Kellum, go Leafs go tonight. I know Terry is sporting his Austin Matthews jersey, so we will get you out as quick as we can, folks. But there's a lot on the agenda tonight with some really great discussion coming. I'm hoping we have a lot of things to talk about. I'd be looking to approve or amend the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to move item 4.12, which is tab 1, the combined operating comparison. I would like to move it to after 4.2. So that we can look at, before we get into the e-book, we can look at the combined operating comparison in there. And Fran, you also have an amendment.
That's the same one, Dave, so I don't have anything further.
Is that where you wanted to put it as well, Fran? Is that satisfactory?
Perfect.
Okay,
and at
awesome.
that time too, I'd like to add, Becky Belfour will be adding some information in that section as well, with an added report at that time called
at 4.12.
Yes.
When we move it up, perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll call on Becky at that point as well. Thank you,
Thanks.
Fran. Could I call on Councillor Andreessen to move the agenda for tonight's meeting as amended?
Yes, I will move that agenda as amended.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, would you second that?
Yes, I would second that agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any discussion, please say so in the chat function. And if not, everyone in favor, if anyone is opposed, please say so in the chat function. And we're seeing no one opposed, so that is carried as amended. And we'll now move to the consent agenda. Tonight I'll be looking to adopt the minutes of the December 9th budget meeting. Councillor Behrens, would you move those, please?
Yes, I will move those, but we did skip over pecuniary.
Sorry, you are right. I will get back to it. Thank you. Councillor Duncan, would you second the minutes of the December 9th budget meeting?
Yes, I'll second those.
Thank you. Any discussion? Thank you. Anyone opposed, please use your chat function. Seeing none, we'll call that approved. And now we will go backwards in the agenda because I'm not that good at this. We need Mayor Todd back in here. Item 1.3 is the disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Behrens.
Thank you, Chair Dave. You're doing a great job. If there is a vote or discussion comes up on 4.5, specifically North Perth Children's Services, I have grandchildren grandchildren taking part in a number of the activities offered there. So I would declare a conflict on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Councillor Anstett.
Yes, thanks, Chair Dave. I'm the same as well. If there was a vote on tab 4.5 or item 4.5 tab 3, I would have to declare a conflict of pecuniary interest because my son attends St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 7.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstett. Anyone else with disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move on now. We have no delegations tonight. We do have lots of reports to be presented tonight, and most of our senior staff is with us. I know Lyndon's having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we will get Lyndon with us here shortly. So I will turn the over to item 4.1, the business plan report, and I will turn it over to our CAO, Chris.
Thank you, Dave. So I'll begin tonight with two reports, and the two reports are related, but they also in some ways contradict each other as well. I am aware of the contradiction in the two reports. But the first report deals with the 2021 department business plans that were presented to council back in December at the December 7th council meeting. So as council is aware, in the delivery of the business plans, we have approximately 25,000 hours over and above the current staff capacity to implement year one of the strategic plan. And also in reviewing year two and three aren't going to be a whole lot better. So as a result of the council meeting and the significant gap, we did ask each department to go back and re-review their business plan in an effort to highlight any projects or areas that could be pushed off into 2022. So we did reduce by deferring some of the projects, a total of 2,021 hours across the corporation. However, when doing so, many of the departments deferred projects they were either supporting or contributing to, and those may still be projects that were a high priority for the leading department. So in a sense, by one department deferring the contributing or supporting factor, they're really just shifting that workload back to the leading department. So in essence, we really were only able to look at deferring a total of 1,617 hours. So that does close a little bit of the gap, but it's only a small percentage of the overall gap that we're looking to close to implement the 2021 business plans. So really, we started to then look at how we can close this gap in the 2021 budget, and certainly staff is aware of the current situation in our community with the impacts of COVID. But we have allocated some additional staff in the 2021 budget. So when the administrative assistant retired in 2020, we did not replace that position at this time, and we were looking to readdress or recommit those hours elsewhere. So we will be looking at some half H-time HR support, as well as a half-time portion of that position to support economic development and communications. Also as well, the manager of programs is in the administration budget, and hence we would still have the former director of recreation hours, which would be proposed to go towards a facilities manager. And also in the 2021 budget is proposed IT staff for the last part of 2021. The 2021 budget also includes an additional 200,000 to assist with the organizational model that has been seen by council in a preliminary stage. And we would use both the reorganization and the gap. We would use that $200,000 to move that forward. So as part of that, we'd also take a look at really how does our staffing model compare to like municipalities. Some municipalities are experiencing high growth, municipalities that offer the same type of services as us. And we would really like to see if what our staff complement looks like in comparison to places like Saugeen Shores, Center Wellington, the type of places that are experiencing sort of the same growth impacts that we are having. And of course, all these positions would need further development. As departments, heads, and senior management, we haven't really got into all the detail of what this looks like going forward, and all these will have to be approved both by HR and council before any of the positions would be filled. So when doing this, really we're coming to the conclusion that North Perth is really a crossroads. Existing staff can maintain the current operational service levels, but additional project work will not be completed in a timely manner with the current staff complement. Plus service increases from growth and or downloading will also continue to strain our resources. So really, we're sort of at that crossroads of being the community that we all strive to become, which we heard a lot about from our residents and staff and council through the strategic planning process. And so this is just one plan presented in 2021 to help close that gap so we can fully implement our strategic plan for the next 20 to 30 years. As well, additional staff resources may need to be added in future budgets. So the attachment to tonight's report is really the sort of projects that staff have identified that can either be deferred or deleted, as well as the entire business plans were again attached for council's consideration. I don't think I need to go through the attachments, but I certainly will leave that up to the chair and any questions that council may have. And Dave, I don't know if it's just as because they're so related. Do you want to take questions now, or do you want me to go right into the next report?
I was actually thinking about that, Chris. I think we may as well go right into the next report, and then we'll discuss them both, and then we'll adopt both of them at that time. So I think go right into the next one, please, Chris, if that's okay with council.
Thank you. So as part of the 2021 budget visioning process, staff took from that meeting a request to perform a service inventory review on current municipal services. So really where we started this was we looked at what services are legislated or deemed essential through legislation, and then took a look at the other services that we could look at possible savings or service reductions. In the past, we have really tried to look at reducing all our department budgets by 5%, for example. And we're really at the point, as we've seen through the business planning process, that we're really don't have the hours to commit to the current service levels, let alone continue with the projects that have been identified. So really, if we're going to look at overall operational budget reductions, we really are going to have to look at reducing service. So in the attached chart, we looked at color coding the services. Ones that are in blue are legislated. Ones that are either that are full cost recovery are or moving towards cost recovery are yellow. Ones that have special levies or user paid are red, and ones that support our risk management are purple. So that really just leaves the green ones left that we're either providing services above the legislative requirement or are not legislative required for us to do, and therefore we may have an opportunity to save money. So in total, we identified 8 that we attached numbers to, with one addition being looking at possibly selling some of the portion of the new cemetery just to generate one-time revenue. With the changing patterns in cemetery, we don't think we need all the land that we've set aside for that project. It's also to note that some of these savings are just in areas that we've actually just invested in. Like the example is bylaw enforcement. It's only been in 2020 that we invested in additional bylaw enforcement, and this proposal does look at reducing that service, as well as the elimination of some of the other services would significantly impact the municipality's ability to complete the strategic plan. For example, if we remove the economic development department, all the economic development priorities identified in the strategic plan would become without staff support and really would have to be shelved or deleted from the plan. There was once this was circulated to staff, there was some additional items identified. And although we are willing to take a look at those issues or opportunities, we haven't spent the time to look at those yet, just with the time that we've had. And those include sharing or relocating the municipal building, reducing management levels, a paid parking option, reduce winter control, and that would be in conjunction with the modernization project with the county, and then a consolidation of the public works yards. So really, I'll just spend some time on the chart. When you look at the chart as a whole, it really does, of all the services we offer, and this was taken directly from the strategic plan, we really are left with only a few in the green that do allow us to look at how we can reduce our costs. So looking in detail at the further 8, the criteria that we used to identify the 8 were services that we're offering over the legislative requirement. So for example, that would be the police department. We're required to have a police department. Now we do have contract enhancements that allow us to have an office in North Perth that serves our residents for things like criminal reference checks. That is not required, but as many of council will be aware, we fought hard to keep that office in our municipality. As well, similar example is the library. We're required to have a library, but we could look at reducing the branches. The other criteria was not being legislative required for us to do it all. So an example of that would be to have economic development. And then the third criteria was looking at aging facilities or services that need a lot of capital investment over the next number of years. So a good example of that would be the listable pool and some of the other facilities that are among the 8. So in total, there's no one part of the 8 that saves a lot of money, but in total, it does add up to a little over $1.1 million. But having said that, it does come at quite a cost to services we offer our community. We're predicting that reducing the cemetery construction would be a one-time revenue increase of $900,000. And as I said, the other options that we haven't investigated fully are listed below. So also at this time, it's important to note that staff are not recommending any of these reductions just because we think the impact is too large or too great of impact to our community, but we're brought forward as the opportunities that we think council could make some reduction in services if that's the direction council would like to go. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Chris. So going back to council, questions on either of the reports Chris has brought, the service delivery review or the business plan? Some questions, discussion, comments? Chris has put a lot of information out there. A lot of this stems from our service delivery review, comes from our visioning session council where we wanted staff to look at everything. So they have looked at it and they have come back with some potential services we could cut. So is there any questions or discussion? Chris, I think you swamped everybody. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chair Dave. And I just want to thank Chris and all the departments for really digging deep and looking deep into the issues. I think you've really identified a major issue, and that is the fact that in order for us to do the work that we need to do and complete our strategic plans, it does take people. And we've noted that in the past, it's been difficult for staff to do that because we've noted that some projects have been, delayed at times, and it's been difficult probably just not having enough staff. So I really appreciate digging deep into those issues. And I think it's something that we really need to look at moving forward. Your report's really comprehensive. It has a lot of really big issues that are listed that, could be cut, and that would have significant impact on our community, which is worrisome to some degree. So I feel like I almost feel like I need more time, but I'm not sure if there is more time to be had. But these are difficult decisions to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Dave. Chris, with the closure of with our council members, bring our council members down. What number were you thinking there? And what would you do in compensation for the ones that are left there? What kind of pay would they get?
Well, certainly included in the 2021 budget was some increase in council remuneration just because of the current study that's being conducted by the Citizens Committee. So really, we just did take the savings from 2020 council salaries and reduced that number by 3. That also includes some of the ancillary expenses included with salary and supporting council, but really it's reducing council from 10 members to 7 members. And again, this isn't something we're really recommending, but it's just something that was one of those things that we could look at. That's not a there's no legislative requirement. The act says you have to have at least 5. So we did take a look at just reducing it by 3.
What did you with the mayor? What's your ideas with mayor? Should that be, when would we be sometime looking at a full-time mayor?
I mean, we didn't look at any enhancements through this program. That really wasn't our initiative. It was really to look at what we could reduce. So that's in some ways a whole different conversation above and beyond this examination.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I agree, Chris. I think that is another whole big discussion. I'm actually one that's quite a bit in favor of dropping 3 members of council at the next election. I think we are plenty big enough here. Mayor Kaysenberg.
Thanks, Dave. I think when I ponder messages to send as someone who is perhaps closest to the day-to-day of staff, I can say in walking the halls and talking to our staff members that people are overloaded. That's not just a mayor opinion or position, but it's also a professional position formed from a few years of working in a number of different organizations as a consultant and as an employee. So I think it really is important to understand this crossroads from that perspective, and for our citizens to hear it from their mayor, that we have a very lean staff organization that is in significant jeopardy of not being able to complete the aspirational as well as the routine if we don't take some action in the near future. And that action is daunting. People, of course, in our community are often uncomfortable with the notion that the staff complement needs to be increased. They question us when we propose to do such things. But I can assure from my 2 years of walking the halls and interacting with our team that there is a problem, and that the approach that was brought forward by staff to look at more significant cuts that affect whole aspects of our operation were necessary because there's no more fat to cut anywhere else. And I think, as we move forward and think about this, we have to decide what kind of community we want to be. When we look at this, we have to say, do we want to be a community that, for example, eliminates recreation programs or eliminates economic development activities as a staff function? And what that means for our quality of life and our quality of place and the experiences that our citizens and those who move here will have? Or do we continue to look at how we prudently invest in our community? And I can say, again, as mayor, having looked at the examples of previous council, that prudent investments have been made in the infrastructure of our community. We are extremely well set on a whole bunch of physical infrastructure foundations. But now we're at a stage where we're growing rapidly. We have been for a few years, and it's urgent that we consider how we move forward. I will say unequivocally that I don't believe in making any of these cuts. I think these cuts will be damaging to the fabric of our community and to the experience we have as citizens living here, both long time, 6 generations of blood in the soil citizens, and citizens like myself who've only moved here 4.5 years ago or more recently. But I care about this community, and I care about the staff, and I want to send my professional and mayoral opinion that we must do something because the staff is overloaded, and if we don't take some kind of action, we will begin not just to continue to, or not, we already are experiencing, but we will accelerate the experience of short-term and potentially long-term disability type leaves, and we will experience accelerated turnover as well, given the stress that is experienced in trying to manage a program that's well beyond the capabilities of our staff. And it's not about professional capabilities, it's about time. They do not have time to deal with the mandates that we as a council have ambitiously put before them, and it's time that we fix that.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and a very well-spoken, wise words there from someone that is actually a council member that's on the inside of the staff. I can honestly tell you, since I've been back on council, I've maybe been into the municipal building through the day, maybe 4 or 5 times, and really not much interaction with staff at that point. So that's I know that, well, since the pandemic, you've likely been here too much. But I know that you have put in a lot of time here getting to know staff and walking the halls, as you call it, and I think that is a great read on the staff. So thank you very much for that, Mayor Todd, from someone that's on the inside more than I am. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Dave. I appreciate that, and I appreciate Mayor Todd's comments. I want to just focus on the one issue which Dave mentioned and Councillor Terry mentioned with respect to number of council members and council expenses. And I just need confirmation from Chris and or Pat, and I believe I heard it in Chair Dave's comment, is that this wouldn't actually, in terms of any reduction, would not be effective until the next municipal election. Is that correct?
Pat is nodding her head. Chris, maybe you can comment, or Pat, go ahead. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Dave. Yeah, and that's the problem with even a lot of these um, proposals, even so. Councillor Rothwell, you're right. That would not be to the next election, so that would be 2 years away. And even if we look at things like our police contract, that would be an adjustment we'd have to make at the next contract renewal, which is sometime either the very end of this term or the very beginning of the next term. So some of the stuff, there are some time lags to it. And that would be my one comment, just to follow up on Councillor Andreessen's comments. Even we also, if council wants to explore any one of these 8 topics, so we really need to do even some more homework on how they unfold from here. But that would be correct. Council savings would not take effect until the next term.
Thank you, Chris.
And just, I appreciate that, Chris, and thanks, Dave. In terms of any reduction of council expenses here associated with us, I mean, I think that's something that's going to be happening with respect to implications of COVID. Certainly anyone that's registered in 2 weeks hence for the Rural Ontario Municipal Conference. So it's only a conference fee, and there's no travel and no accommodation and meals to worry about. So, that transfers not just from council, but it also transfers to our staff. But I want to be clear, in my view, is that we're not looking at reducing opportunities for training for either A, staff, or B, counselors. I think now would be a time to take advantage of these training opportunities, because frankly, the amount of A, time, and B, money that's going to be required for these are minimal, just in terms of registration costs only. And yes, there's time associated with any hours we spend, staff and counselors spend, but I think that would behoove us to take advantage of that. So, I mean, in the overall scheme, these are relatively small numbers that we're talking about, but as Chair Dave and the senior managers that were involved in our budget conversations earlier this week, I mean, when we're looking for nickels and dimes, then that's what you're going to get, is nickels and dimes. And I don't believe that, following up on the mayor's comments, that we should be looking down the road here in terms of looking at some of these reductions of services and so on, because expectations are that we are going to be here as a municipality to support our citizens and our businesses to help us get through this this time that we have here and into the future. And so I would just say that the one item that Chair Dave mentioned is that I think we should look at ourselves as council and what we can potentially do into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair Dave. Very good comments by everyone, and I totally agree with Todd talking about, like, some of the things that we're looking at cutting here would be significant detriment to the community. I do think at some point in the future, whether it's this election or the next election, we will need to look at the point about councillors, even though it is a small amount, because if you look at the number of councillors, and even though it's expenses and minimal, and I do understand the whole dynamics of the municipality, that is something that is probably going to need to be looked at in the future at some point anyway, because we currently have a roster of 10, whereas if you look at, Toronto was just cut in half and they've got 22. They've only got double the number of councillors that we have, and they've got a couple of million people. So at the end of the day, you have to look at, and then if you look at the, from the AMO report that was released I think it was 2 years ago, I'll stand corrected, looking the councils of 10 are for municipalities that are significantly larger than what we have. That will change the workload of individual councillors. That will change the workload of, well, it will change the dynamics of council profoundly, and everything that is involved with that. However, I do believe for a decision to come on that, or even further discussions, that we need to wait until the report comes back from the committee that has been commissioned to look at the whole council thing. I think before that even really gets discussed more often, but I think at some point in the future, that is going to need to be looked at, and that could even bring back and I might raise the ire of some, but it's also going to bring back at the look at the way we do elections and everything, whether things are at large and everything, because if you reduce the number of councils, how do you do it? Do we still do that? Because everything's going to be part and parcel of the same package. And we all know that even if we go down that road to look at something. But everything else, I do feel that we need to provide some of these services, and they're mission critical to the overall success of North Perth. That cutting this, like at the end of the day, I can't even come up with a good analogy as to what you're cutting, because of the overall scheme of things, like it was made mention before, the overall scheme of our budget and the level of service that we provide to the citizens of North Perth, of which I do believe is good value. Some of these would be minimal at best, but the effect would be profound to the community itself and for the number of people that some of them provide. So that's only my 2 cents, but I do believe that overall council operations, we should wait for that community report to come back, citizen community report to come back and see what they've actually made mention of. But I do believe that everything else, I shouldn't necessarily say non-starter for me, but I do believe that they would have a profound effect that I think that we would be not really doing ourselves a favor by looking at those. So my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Any other comments, questions? Then I have a motion that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report titled 2021 Department Business Plan Review. Mayor Kasenberg, would you move that?
So moved.
And Deputy Mayor Kellum, would you second that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Please bring it up in the chat function. Seeing none, if you are opposed, please put it in the chat function now. Seeing none, that is carried. And we will now move to item 4.2, the other report that Chris presented. And I have a motion here that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report titled Service Inventory Review as information. Councillor Richardson, would you move that, please?
So moved.
And Councillor Rothwell, could I ask you to second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Once again, any discussion on the report Chris presented, Service Inventory Review? If you have any questions or discussion, please use the chat function now. And we're not seeing anything. So anybody opposed, once again, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, I will call that one approved. That motion is passed. We will now be moving on to, this is where we amended our budget. We will now be moving to tab 1 on the flipbook e-books, which is item 4.12, the combined operating comparison. And who is presenting this? Is this Fran and Becky?
Good evening, Chair Dave and Council. Before you this evening, you have a report on the operating budget process and tax impact. So when the Budget Committee met, we discussed the presentation of the operating budget as a whole, and we were directed as staff to just submit the combined sheet for this meeting, and the line-by-line sheet will be sent out for the 27th budget meeting, as the Budget Committee felt that it was important for Council to look at the overall picture of the operating budget. So the combined sheet gives you all of the information. The first one that was sent out was based on the actual numbers in the budget from 2020 as well as this year's numbers for 2021. The restated budget, which is the second one, or combined budget, which is the second one you received. As part of the 2021 budget, we have been initiating some changes due to the anticipation of our new budget software. So one of the changes we made was the OMPF grant funding used to be under the admin department. We have now distributed across departments based on their budgeted expenditures, as long as they were not a zero-based budget. And as well, you'll note that we have also divided out the IT function on the combined sheet. Budget amounts are the same. It's just we divided that department out, and they have then, we have then charged the various departments the amounts allocated based on computers within the department to help offset the IT budget and their services. With these changes, we you'll note, I believe Chris already touched on this, that we have included in this 2021 operating budget transfer to reserve for COVID relief of $100,000, as well as council direction regarding business plan implementation of $200,000. And so with the great work of staff and department heads, the resulting impact is a 3% tax levy increase, which translates to 0.6% impact on the current property owners, as property assessment growth has funded 2.4% increase on the levy. So we have had a few changes this year, and we just felt that this might be a good approach to deal with the operating budget this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Any questions for Becky on the combined operating budget with the 2020 portion of the budget restated, once again spreading out that OMPF funding and the IT department being spread out between departments? Any questions for Becky? Councillor Behrens, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Dave. Just to be clear, Becky, I know that you broke it out and said that 2.4 of it is funded by the increase in assessment or growth, but it could be a good portion of it is the increase in assessment. Is this a year where, you know, the reassessments that we did, so the same ratepayers, like the majority of ratepayers could still be paying like a total of a 3% increase, even though you have presented it a little bit different way? Are you understanding what I'm asking?
Assessments are staying the same this year for 2021
Okay.
as last year, yes. So this is our growth, really. It's your assessment's going to be exactly the same as it was last year unless you did something to your property.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. I was looking for my tax bill and I couldn't find if this was an increase year or not. But
no.
So that makes a huge difference. And now I understand why you presented it that way. So thank you very much.
Yes, MPAC is doing a very good job. This last while, they've been very quick, severances, supplementals, everything, and getting our growth captured in a very timely fashion. So that's good that we've been able to see that this year.
Now, I hope this is being recorded because we don't often hear someone from the tax department say MPAC's doing a good job. So I'm glad, Becky, we have that on record now. But yes, Julie, a great question. And yes, it is being assessment staying flat means that yes, this increase is a lot of it is being eaten up by the growth in the municipality. Chris, do you have a comment?
So just building on that, because we're not in the assessment cycle because of COVID and the provincial government freezing assessments, this is one of the very few times we can actually see what our actual growth is doing. Other years it gets mixed up in reassessment and the continual 4-year phase-in of assessments. And so this is the one moment in time with this new assessment cycle that we can actually see the impact that growth is having on our budget, which is a positive thing. But it does, from our discussions internally as staff, it does for the first time actually make it more simple.
And we do get a snapshot of our assessment, Chris, instead of a moving video all the time where you'd never really know what your assessment's at. So yes, I agree. Very good point. Any other questions for Becky / Fran / Chris on this? Okay, thank you everyone for your questions. And we are going to be moving on to item 4.3, the budget ebook. So it's, I believe if you tap on item 4.3, you'll be able to pull up that budget ebook. Hopefully everybody can. And Becky or Fran, did you want to talk anything about this before we get into it?
I think it's pretty straightforward. The department heads overviews are there, as well as next meeting, all of the line by lines will be in the ebooks.
Awesome, thank you. Council, everybody is ready to go ahead. You've got your ebook pulled up. I'm seeing a few heads nodding. Pat's trying to get it pulled up here. Looks like the deputy mayor's checking the leaf score. Good for him. Good for you, Doug. Okay, if everybody's ready, Pat's going to pull it up here as well. We are going to turn it over to tab number 2, General Administration, Economic Development and Police. Chris, the floor is yours. And
Thank you,
there,
Dave.
Pat has it pulled up here on WebEx as well. Thank you.
So I'm not going to go through and read the overview. Council can do that at their pleasure. I am just going to highlight a couple of things, both in relation to the combined operating sheet for administration, as well as highlight a couple of things that I omitted in my summary. So as Becky said, OMPF used to be housed in general administration. And so because of that being removed and spread around, it really has put the administration budget up significantly. So that's where most of that huge increase in the budget being up in administration is. Also, we've housed the manager of programs salary in there for now until we really get that new structure and department up and running. So that's also caused that increase. One of the things that I omitted when I'm putting together the overview is that we have put aside funds of $60,000 for the community safety plan implementation. As council is aware, North Perth has joined with all the other municipalities in Perth County in creating a community safety plan, which will be completed in this year. And those funds are to implement the community safety plan. And Councillor Behrens is our representative on that committee, and I don't think we really have a handle on how much the implementation will be, but that's sort of the best guess we've used, just based on a cost per person figure. And the climate change coordinator has garnered a lot of discussion amongst the partners as well in the 7 municipalities. Rebecca's position was funded up until the end of February. She will be reporting to council in that time, and we'll be presenting our climate change action plan. And so there's been some discussion amongst the 7 of us as to how we can partner and continue the services of that position to implement the plan. So there are enough funds in the 2021 budget to hopefully share that position with all 7 municipalities so that we can once we get the plan approved by the councils, then we would have an ability to implement those plans. I think that's really my highlights of the administration. I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory, but I'm certainly willing to answer any questions councilor may have. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Behrens, you have a comment.
Yeah, just for everyone's information, just as recently as this afternoon, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee met, and we looked at the draft today. We'll be looking at a final report coming to all of the councils. I'm going to say late February, early March, somewhere in there, there'll be a presentation. I think, or I'm hoping that you're going to like what you see, but there's going to be a few decisions to make. But this is a mandated requirement to have this plan. And it basically just, like there's 4 priorities. They're going to come forward with the 4 priorities and goals and an implementation plan. How much of that will actually get, because it doesn't mean there's a number of agencies all working together on this. It's not just municipal. You know, from the United Way to all the police services, and all like mental health and all of that are involved in this. So it's kind of a huge thing, but that will be coming. A lot of us made the concern today that we're currently in budgeting, so you know we really didn't want to have a presentation to muddy the waters until maybe late February, early March. But look for that to come. I think it's going to be, when we talked about Amy's last week with Lonely No More, like that program's going to, I think you're going to find how everything kind of pieces and fits together. And I'm excited about it. So that will be coming at a later date. But thank you very much for the support.
That's great news, Councillor Behrens, and we look forward to getting that in February or March. Whenever we get that presentation, that'll be awesome. Any other comments or questions for Chris? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4.5, tab number 3, the Clerk, Children's Services and Building Department. Pat is up, our clerk, Pat Burfelds.
Okay. Thank you. And council, similar to Chris's comment, I'm not necessarily going to read through my report. The clerk's department, Jeanette and I have, with COVID, it's been an up and down and all around, as it has been for every department. We've gone from council meetings well attended to 2 or 3 of us gathering here together. But I think we've worked it out well, and we were very fortunate that council had spent the money and had the insight, as mentioned earlier in other council meetings by Councillor Andreessen. It certainly helped us move forward in this new virtual world. Tomorrow, just as something I can make comment on, tomorrow the IT staff and Danette and I and Chris working from home, we're going to experience and test a hybrid virtual meeting, meaning when and if council does get to come back as a group of 10 councillors, we'll still have the opportunity to use WebEx and virtual presentations, which is, I think, is an excellent opportunity for us to move forward. So if we have a highlight, I think that would be it. And the other comment is it's been unfortunate working with the K9 control that we haven't had the personal opportunity to spend with them, but I'm sure in 21 that's going to happen. And then finally, planning, despite COVID, you can see, and you've experienced it with the numerous applications and others that you've had to approve, that planning certainly hasn't slowed down, and the future is also very promising. So that's just my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to the clerk and planning. Okay, so if not, I have also the building department report, and I'm fortunate that Ed Podnowitz is here with us virtually tonight as well. Just one quick comment that we wasn't necessarily a banner year as you've experienced for the last several and building, but it still has been amazing the amount of construction and the permits that have left this building. And if I think without the permit software, I think Ed would have made it pretty close to meeting another year of being able to cover all these expensive. But going forth with this permit software, we're pretty excited about it. And I think the community, the developers, and our builders are really going to like it. More efficient and very much looking forward to it. Again, Ed is here to answer any questions to assist me with that. Okay. Oh, no sound from you, Dave.
Sorry. Ed, do you have any comments? Sorry, I hit the mute button again. Ed Podnowitz, do you have any comments about your building department for 2020 or 2021?
No, I think my synopsis and outlook is self-explanatory. Just reiterating Pat's comment on the new software that we just actually had a training session on Tuesday with the software provider. My new staff, they're young and keen, and I think they're picking it up fairly quickly. So today, we just give them a task of inputting all the 2020 permits that we currently have under Keystone. So they're going to actually import them into the new software because we still have a lot of inspections outstanding on those permits. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. I think it's timely, being with the pandemic that's affecting us all. This is going to give us an opportunity to do everything electronically. So there'll be basically no need to attend the office. They can simply apply online, and then we do our review and everything online, and then we issue the permit online, basically. So, and even the inspections and everything is done electronically as well. So it's a very unique opportunity, and we're looking forward to next year. We don't have a crystal ball, but based on the number of calls I've had in the latter part of 2020 and just the beginning of 2021, it sounds to me, or looks to me, like we're going to have another busy year.
Great, thanks, Ed. And it sounds like the new software is going to make it quite a bit easier for your department as well. And that's never a bad thing, and that's money well spent by us, by the municipality. Then thanks, Ed. Back to you, Pat.
Yes, so finally, in regards to childcare, again, not going to reread the report, but I think council has been quite aware of the what's happening in childcare during the past year, from March to closure to emergency to slightly opening, then reopening, and back to where we are open, expecting for full enrollment. However, due to job losses and several parents being very uncomfortable with the situation, we're not operating at 100%. However, all programs have increased and looking very promising. At the time of preparing the budget for council's consideration, I basically used the information on previous years, but in conversation with the city, who has not had an opportunity to really work on childcare budgets, and not being able to give me any different information as childcare moves forward in the future. That will be happening at the end of January into February. So at that point in time, North Perth staff, myself working with Amy, may be back in regards to amendment, depending on what we learn from the city, being a great supporter in the funding for the childcare in North Perth. So just willing as well to answer any questions if I can.
Great, thank you, Pat. Any questions for Pat on anything to do with the clerk, children's services? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 4.6, which is tab number 4, Finance, IT, and BIA. Fran, you're up.
Thanks very much, Dave. The finance department, all staff has been quite engaged with helping put together our business plan for 21. It's kind of a neat format, and it makes everybody start to think about all the things that could or would or should be done in the department. I too am just going to highlight some of the things which actually have already been brought up by others this evening. And the first one, though, is the fact that streamlining the budget process next year, I think council and staff are going to be looking forward to that and quite exciting about what we can do and further then have financial plans that do some forecasting for us and actually put some real meat on the bones of what we do every year and be able to see that future financial position that we are heading for. So we're all quite excited about that, and I'm sure council is as well. Now, I too am going to compliment MPAC, if you can believe it. After all these times of saying things that aren't so nice, they have just improved immensely. And it's not only their improvement for providing us with better assessment, information, but it's time saving. We don't have to go over things over again. We don't have to follow through on things because we're able to do it right away. The backlog isn't there. And certainly I do see that it's going to make for a higher level of service for us then to provide, as well as reduce the frustration of our property owners, because that time lag can be very frustrating, especially if a property sells a couple times or goes through a developer and a builder and etc. So it's just, I really have to give kudos to MPAC. Their level of service has just been tremendous the last little while. And we do have some backlog. But they've just moved it forward so much. So quite pleased with that part. We've talked about growth a couple of times, and additional funding that I had. And so I do feel that that does help with the operating workload and costs that we incur. So it was quite neat, as has been mentioned, to be able to actually see the growth and how it has performed, because we don't have all the tax shifts between the two classes this time. We do need to move forward with the reassessment. Just to be fair, I feel that we have to move it forward, but we'll see some shifts probably from farmland back to residential, and I'm not sure how it affects business at this point because of some of the changes in the tax rate with the school boards. But yeah, I am quite excited that we're able to witness and see how that growth is affecting us this year. And we know it's always there, but it's just hard to pinpoint and relay to the public how it's working. And this way it's very transparent and nice to see that. I think it helps reinforce that the funds from growth are helping us continue to operate. And I'd be quite willing to address any questions.
Thank you, Fran. I had actually, if I can start with a question. MPAC, Fran, have you talked to other municipalities? Are they getting along as well with MPAC lately as you are, or is it just us?
I have been exposed to some municipal finance officer seminars, and Becky has been as well. And I'm getting the general feeling that it's definitely there for most municipalities. But I think the ones like ourselves that are growing and have a lot of development property, we're experiencing just that much more than those that aren't. So maybe Becky has a comment here too, Dave. I'm not sure, but I would say that it is an overall performance increase, but especially when it comes to severances and some of the things that they were, 2-3 years behind, and now we're getting it with in a month. So yeah, it's good.
Thank you, Fran. Becky, any comments about MPAC?
I would just agree with Fran. And now their new Municipal Connect has really come ahead leaps and bounds with how we can access information and how we transfer information and that whole piece of it. And they just keep making better enhancements for us and for themselves, along with the building department and how this is all going to unfold with their new software. So it's quite exciting working with them.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Becky. Any questions for Fran and the finance and IT?
Could I also add, Dave, that the building department software rolls into this really nicely, because then we can electronically send all the plans and information on to MPAC. So this is a hand in glove relationship, and I think we're going to help them more and they're going to help us more.
But that's also good to hear that our software does make the job much easier for other people then as well. Thank you. That's good. Okay, any questions for Fran? Thank you, Fran. And Becky from the Finance Department. Okay, Council, we'll move on to item 4.7, tab number 5, the North Perth Library. Chris, are you covering this tonight?
Actually, I believe Sherry's here.
Okay, Sherry Burfeltz, then you're up with the library, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, 2020 was certainly an interesting year for us at the library also. This evolving COVID situation really required us to adapt to meet the needs of our community. We began offering Wi-Fi hotspots. We enhanced our digital collection and we modified both our in-person and virtual services. Currently, we are allowed to remain open and we're offering curbside services. Certainly the highlight for me, well, for all of us at the library, by all means, was opening our new branch in Moncton in October 2020. That was a really, really happy time for us all. And we just really look forward to the fact when we can really be open and welcome people right into our building. Right now we can welcome them curbside, but we're hoping we can sooner rather than later open them into that lovely building that we have. And we're so appreciative of that. Our operating budget for 2021 really is status quo in terms of service levels. Once again, it's due to the unforeseen nature of the pandemic. We do anticipate a potential decrease in our revenue from our overdues and faxing at all our branches, but we have been positively impacted by the OMPF grants. So we're kind of the status quo this year. And that's what I have. Chris, do you have anything else that we've talked about?
No, I think that was a good job. Thank you, Sherry.
Yes, once again, thank you, Sherry. And yes, again, the library very much affected by COVID and unforeseen. And once again, we don't know how long this current state of emergency and stay home order will last. And yes, it's got to be tough having a brand new library, and we cannot let people roam free in it as of yet. So, but it's coming.
It really is, yeah.
Everybody stay home, stay safe, and let us get into the libraries. Any questions for Sherry? Man, Sherry, you got them all baffled. They're all worried about that new, trying to figure out how to get into the new library in Moncton. So thank you very much,
If they need
Sherry.
some help with ebooks, we can help you out with that too.
Very good, awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Council, no questions. We will move on to tab number 6, item 4.8, Fire Department. Chief Smith, you're with us, I believe. Chief?
Thank you, Chair Dave. You can hear me? I got a headset on now.
Yep.
Okay. Anyways, I won't go through my review and outlook because everybody else has pretty well said it. The 2020 was quite a year, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize what toll it does take on the fire service when we're dealing with the public direct on many issues. The one thing that we did see big time this past year was the fact that the burn permits went way up. So a lot of people did a lot of cleaning in their properties. You can see that we continued with our training programs, even though training was an issue, trying to get places that we could train and do training, but we still had a number of firefighters meet the requirements under NFPA for certain courses. And just as of this morning, so council's up to date, nobody else in the municipality probably knows this as of yet either. It was announced by our fire marshal's office that the province has chosen to close the fire college in Gravenhurst permanently. As of March 31st, the requirements for training and certification will still be there. That have to be met, but we will no longer have a fire college. So we have to try to figure out how we're going to do that internally and with other programs available throughout the province. So that was a unique thing that just happened today. There was no consultation with any of the fire services on this or the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs or anything. It was just announced it's closed as of the 31st of March. So if there's any questions in regards to my report and my outlook, I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my abilities.
Thank you, Chief Smith. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Chair Dave. The question, and thanks, Chief Smith, for your report. So obviously with new news becomes the question in terms of like what potential impact this is going to have for your operational or training costs for our service. And can you, being a rookie counselor, like I take it there was significant numbers of our volunteer firefighters and other staff that would attend annually. Is that correct?
Yes,
Like,
you're quite correct on that. We did send firefighters there for training for a number of courses. Some of it was a two-stage course where you did a certain amount of it at home and then you went to the college and finished it to help reduce the number or increase the number of people capable of going to the college. What they're telling us now is we're going to have to try to seek more outside training facilities, such as what Blythe used to be, that are incorporated with the fire marshal's office. The unfortunate part is we have none locally anymore. We're looking at Grimsby, Toronto areas, things like that. And if we do have to start sending members to them places and they're not able to drive back and forth, we're looking at accommodations. We're looking at food where with the fire college, we paid $65 for a firefighter to go there for the week for the course. And that included food and accommodations. And then we paid them, of course, a training fee to be there for the week or the length of their course, where now we're going to be looking at a whole lot of other avenues. So I guess basically where money has went other places, it's been deducted from other places.
thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. Any other questions? Chief Smith, a question about training. Is many of the courses being offered virtually or more than there was in the past due to COVID? Is there opportunities that way?
They had started offering courses virtually, portions of the courses, because with the fire service, so much of it, especially the firefighting side of it, is hands-on. Like you do have your theory, but there's a lot of practical involved, like live fire training. Pump ops is a good one where I used to train pump ops, but unfortunately I don't have the time anymore to put into doing that because that took nights and weekends, and I give that the best of my ability for nothing. So unfortunately we're caught in a situation where our program that we do use for training Stillwater is NFPA based. So a lot of our firefighters were able to take the theory portion of the training at home and then do the practical portion out at the fire college or at another training center. But we don't know where that's all going to go right now with this big change, because the fire marshal politely told us that they don't know where it's all going to go. As of today, all they know is they were told that the college will be closed and closed permanently.
Thank you, Chief Smith. That is very discouraging news, and hopefully somebody in this area sees it as an opportunity to maybe develop a training center. Any other questions for Chief Smith? Okay, moving on to item 4.9, tab number 7, roads, drainage, and cemetery. Lyndon, our manager of operations.
Thank you, Dave. I would say I've got bad connection tonight. I might shut off the video to try and come through a little bit clearer. Please let me know if I do fade out. Much like the other departments, status quo budget, probably the most status quo of any budget I've presented over the last few years in terms of percent changes. The transfers of funding and the OMPF transfers make the greatest differences in the numbers that you see there. But I would just refer to my notes briefly. In terms of roads, again, normal operations, normal increases with salaries and cost of living are included in the budgets. We do see some minor changes in some of the operational items that are listed for 2021. Some increases in our debris and leaf collection budget line items, just probably a more diligent public calling in more on those types of activities for us, and we're seeing higher costs, but not great ones. Line painting's going to be contracted out through the county. That could be an increase or decrease in pricing. They used to run their own equipment, but it's very old, and we'll all be looking for something cost competitive for line painting this summer, and it should work out well, probably a decrease in cost. So that's the roads and the winter maintenance. Again, no real changes. Looking forward to a no snow winter like it's been so far. It does mean we do a lot of scarifying, but there's no snow removal involved and very little plowing, lots of treatment, much like last winter so far. I won't even talk about it anymore for fear of what would happen. Stormwater accounts, regular maintenance in the system. We've analyzed where every pipe is in the ground under every road. That's been a big improvement in our asset database. It does mean there'll be a few more repairs. We're cataloging those and look to do more pipe repair as it comes up. Equipment budgets, again, status quo, not many changes. Slightly newer fleet means less maintenance costs. We continue to upgrade. The drainage budgets, again, not many changes reflected, some salary and benefit modifications in that one in terms of the amount we allocate to Perth South versus North Perth, but the budget won't change when you see the line items. On the last page, I just mentioned cemeteries quickly. We have more full-time staffing and a slightly higher benefit package, and that represented, I think it was a 5 or 6% increase in that budget, but it was only a $5,000 or $6,000 change in what is a smaller budget relatively to some of the other ones. So that's the summary really on the accounts, the operations, and what we're doing. Good news on roads, the maintenance gravel increases that we've seen in the past have meant definitely fewer, certainly concerns and complaints from the public. We know that calcium is going to go up in price slightly. We may put a little bit more calcium down in the spring with a second dose later in the year if needed. So there's some increases in that program. We're using some operational dollars to do platform widening like we did in the one section of Road 89 to try and get a wider platform and roads where we can do it with digging ditches and then just recovering some of that shoulder area and then coming in with capital budget and paving. So 89 is an example of something new, and it's trying to build a safer, wider platform in sections that we can do it. We hope to do more sections this year, and we'll talk about that under capital, but some of our operating will be going towards those types of operations, I hope on an ongoing and on an annual basis as well. So that's the summary. If there's questions, I can certainly answer them.
Great, thank you, Lyndon, and I could hear you fine, so there was no issues with your internet as far as I'm concerned. Anybody have a question for Lyndon? Councillor Seiler, go ahead. Terry, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Lyndon, for your report. Question I have is with sidewalk plowing. I know there's essential routes that we do, and there's like a winter like this when it's mild and we're not doing a whole lot of the essential ones. Could we ever look at some non-essential routes that I've had a few phone calls on different parts of Listowel that could you open up from the main street to Inkerman Street where the old Esso used to be there? There's a lot of people that walk through there or whatever, I know. So just, would we ever look at something like that?
Thank you. Yes, we do. In fact, when I introduced an increase in the routing this year, I mentioned in the report, it's just a line, you wouldn't have seen it. It simply said that we understand that there's more serviceable sidewalk. In fact, the provincial regulation says we should be servicing all of our sidewalks in the winter under the standards. We don't. We service 50% of them approximately. We'd like to service more. We're going to look and see through the January window, how we do with what is going to be more regular snow and how we keep up with things. But we definitely have some pedestrian areas that probably need to have winter service as well. We're looking at that for next winter and probably another change to the bylaw that would increase the number of sidewalks. We'd review that through council again like we do every year and provide a map and show where those new routes would be.
Thank you, Lyndon.
A great question, Terry. Thank you. Any other questions for Lyndon about roads, drainage, or cemeteries? I'm not seeing any, Pat. We'll move on to item 4.10, tab number 8, water, wastewater, and solid waste services, presented by Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services. Mark, you're up.
Thanks, Chair Dave. I'll talk about the water and wastewater first. As council is aware, the water and wastewater division is self-funded through the water and wastewater fees that we collect. So it does not have any impact on the tax levy at all. So it shows up on the combined operating budget sheet that you saw earlier as 0. Moving to solid waste, council recently approved the rates effective January 1st. And that has left a budgeted amount of $96,000 approximately that would be on the tax levy. I'd like to note that that's a 42% reduction from 2020. I think so we've been moving in the right direction. At that time, at that council meeting, where I brought the new rates for approval, council asked to see what the rates would need to be so that we could look at balancing the solid waste operational budget in 2021. So in the package that you have, I've included some information of how to get there. We basically have 2 revenue streams. We have the landfill tipping fee and we have the wheelie bin fees. So to move to a balanced budget, we would be looking at moving from the currently approved $98 per metric ton, moving it to $100 per metric ton. So that's not a whole lot of change. Just a note that it was 97 in 2020, so it's would be a $3 increase from 2020. Looking at the wheelie bin fees, we would be looking at moving for the small bin, up to $130 per year, for the medium bin to $195 per year, and to the large bin to $290. Now that's included in the package there. You can see some of those changes from what's been approved and what we would be moving to be able to hit that balanced budget. So overall, though, from moving from 2020 to 2021, that would be a $30 increase per year for all of the small bins. And I note here also that 75% of the bins that are out there, of the waste bins, are the small bins. And it would be a $45 a year increase for the medium bins and a $60 increase for the large bins. Just to put it in a little bit of perspective, and then I'll leave it open to questions. On the second last page of the report, down at the bottom, I had a little comparison to what it was like when we had the bag tag system. So on the right-hand side, I'm not sure what color that is, we'll call it maybe purpley. If back in 2011, the last full year of bag tags, when we charged $2.50 per bag, if a person put out 1 bag per week, it would have cost them $130 a year. Then looking at the wheelie bins for the small, medium, and large, and the different capacities for those bins, you can see the prices on the right hand side in the right hand column of what that would be compared to the bag tag system. So that being said, we're still at a really good price for what we're charging, even moving that fairly drastic jump up to so that we could achieve a balanced budget. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions, Mark? Any comments about his proposal or the numbers that he's put in front of us to move to a completely balanced budget or a zero net budget? When you break it down on the per bag basis as you used to, it's actually doesn't seem like much of an increase. It seems like maybe we've been giving them too good a deal the last few years.
Possibly.
And you're also got the 2020 fees here on a schedule, Mark, that like our wheelie bin collection fees are quite reasonable compared to a bunch of other municipalities that are not very far away from us.
That's correct. You can see our current fee for that we had in 2020 was $100 for the small bin. Again, that's where most of our bins are. So moving it up to 130 would put us up on the upper end of it, but still not the highest. Same with the landfill tipping fee, would put us right in the middle.
Okay, any questions, council? Any thoughts on should we be going to the the proposal to balance the budget? Mayor Todd, go ahead.
Well, I think from our community survey, we saw fairly clear indication on the part of respondents, and we can admit all of the deficiencies that might be involved in that survey in terms of sample size and representation. But I think we saw a fairly clear indication that our ratepayers were in favor of a lot of services being charged out at their cost or at cost recovery purposes. So for me, seeing the report, and Mark, thank you, wonderful to see that analysis, very helpful for us. I would be in favor of moving to full cost recovery for those services.
Great, thank you, Mayor Todd. Councillor Anstead.
Thanks very much, Dave. Mark, thanks very much for the report. Just looking at the comparison that you had on the previous page there, any insight as to how long those municipalities have had those rates? Have they been stagnant for a while, or when was the last time those were increased? Any insight on that?
Yeah. Sorry, I do have quite a bit of information about that, but I don't have it here. I
that's okay.
that. I've been updating it since the program started. Some of the municipalities are similar to us, where we've been inching it up a little bit at a time. Some of them have had it at the same rate since they started.
Right.
It's interesting that they've done it that way, and some of these are newer. We were one of the first to go to the program, so
Right.
some of them haven't been on that all along. Most of the higher ones, though, I would say, are ones that have come on more recently in the last few years, and where they have a better idea maybe of what the cost would be.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. A question, Fran, do we need a motion if we want to go to that balanced budget, or would that just come back? Could we just get council direction to come back at the next budget meeting 2 weeks from tonight? Fran, I'm just looking for guidance.
You could do a motion, Chair Dave, if you'd like, and then that way we would amend Mark's budget for the solid waste accordingly. Or I'd be quite comfortable with just having a consensus, but a motion might be the easiest, just to make sure that we move forward and it's recorded that we to that effect.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Council, we've heard from Mayor Todd. He would be in favor of it for sure. Anybody else want to chime in and see if there is consensus to move forward with the solid waste being put fully onto the bins and the tipping fee. Councillor Rothwell.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dave. I have said previously and will agree with Mayor Todd that I am in favor to go to full cost recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Is there anyone that is really opposed to it? Please use the chat function now if you would. I'm not seeing anything, Pat. So Pat, could we draft up a really quick motion to say council would move towards the 2021 budget of sorry, I'm just reading as we're going here. Yes, so yep, council will support the increase in fees of the wheelie bins and the tipping fees to make it for 2021 to full cost recovery. That's what we want in there. How does that sound, council? Could I ask Councillor Seiler, would you move a motion like that?
I'd be glad to. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And Councillor Andreessen, would you second a motion?
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? So the motion would be to move to full cost recovery on solid waste operations for 2021. And we would be increasing the tipping fee and the wheelie bin fees across the board. I'm seeing no discussion. Okay, we have it moved and seconded. Anyone opposed, please use the chat function at this point. Pat, we're not seeing any. That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Council. And Mark, we're going to full cost recovery on solid waste. Any other questions for Mark's presentation tonight? Anybody? I'm not seeing any. We will move on to item 4.11, tab 9, Parks and Recreation. Our manager of programs, Amy.
Thanks, Chair Dave. Before you is the overview of the operating for Parks and Recreation, highlighting the impact that COVID has had on us with regards to our facilities, specifically the revenue that's affected by minimal capacities that we've been able to permit in our indoor and outdoor facilities and how that affects our rental usage, as well as larger gatherings, larger galas, events, social gatherings, family gatherings being limited, also limiting our usage of our facilities and programs. Want to highlight a message that actually has come through from the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. So they highlight that past crises have proven that parks and recreation are one of the first and most crucial services to return to communities. Parks and recreation play a critical role in mental and physical health recovery of citizens and play an equally important role in the community's economic revival. Access to recreation facilities and programs is a fundamental service for Canadians that will usher in a return to normalcy after COVID-19, especially for children and seniors. So just across the nation, just emphasizing the importance of the recreation components of it. We will highlight that the OMP, a portion of the OMP funding is allocated to our reserves to aid us in our shortfalls if we require it, as well as the first round of the emergency funding through the Safe Restart Agreement will also help with some of the operating pressures that we may experience as we're, through 2020 as well as 2021. The end of my document, the last page, does have a sample of the framework for reopening facilities that we created. Came from the provincial's framework for reopening, and we took each of the stages, broke them down into certain phases and what it could look like. This was done early spring, so some of it may have more of a seasonal feel to it, but what it does is shows you how staff broke down our operations and decisions that we would make should we be moving into a higher level or a lower level, and being able to adjust as smooth as we possibly can to provide the services to our community. So that was just for your information. I would say the biggest highlight for our community, for our department last year, was the usage of our green spaces, our open spaces and parks, and our trails especially. They were used all of the time. They continue to be used even during the winter season. So it's been fantastic to be able to do that. And as a result of that, our staff have had put focus on the maintenance, making sure that these areas are maintained and as well as they're safe for our citizens to use. So trails, green spaces. We also provided some assistance with helping to open the community garden, which was a big factor in helping some of our citizens with regards to having healthier food options during this time. So though maintenance of these open spaces is required, their nature does provide minimal opportunity to generate revenue from them. That is the service that we need to provide to our communities, but we wanted to highlight that piece for council. The North Perth Trail System was our popular amenity, and we were very proud that the G2G received RED funding that helped to expand the Moncton section of it and make it much nicer and definitely a lot nicer for users. And then our staff have been enthusiastic and willing to help with the maintenance of that section. And to see on occasion up to 100 people using our trails throughout the day is quite enlightening. So definitely a good asset for our municipality to be proud of. Regarding our programs, we did, during the initial pandemic, we did transition to the virtual programmings. We do still offer some of those services. We have a babysitting course that is up next week. However, through our work in the Community Services Recovery Action Group, as well as a lot of feedback received from our parents and our families and our public. It was identified that with them returning to school being virtual, they were seeking more in-person programs whenever we were able to do that. So we were able to create some programs such as Park and Play and Skills and Drills. These were outdoor park programs that had a structure to it, had limited numbers, screening, individuals physically distancing under our staff's instructions, making sure everything was safe for them, but for children and participants and adults to enjoy being outside and reconnecting. Skills and Drills were partnerships with some of our minor sport organizations who may not have offered their formal programs that they normally would, but we were able to do small snippets of some skills and drills for the community on that level. We also were able to assist with providing virtual community events, which we feel were very successful, such as the Teddy Bear Play Day and the Atwood Lions Canada Day. It was a pleasure to be part of those exciting events for our community. We helped with assisting other departments as well, economic development. We continue to build the resources for our mental health within our community. We provided a highlight of comparisons for our programs, just highlighting a difference in the impact this has had within our community and our users. So the 2021 outlook, North Perth has our vision statement to work together to enrich the quality of life of residents through vibrant parks, recreation, and culture opportunities. We take that lens with every decision that we make and being able to move forward with that. We took that lens when we created our business plan, and we outlined our parks and our priorities, projects and priorities that stemmed around that. And we provided a highlights of our services and our focus for the department. As we move into 2021, anticipating the COVID still having some flavors on some levels, making our best guess of where our revenues will come from and making adjustments to our expenditures where we can. Some program changes under the pandemic conditions does require more staff supervision of our programs to make sure the protocols are in place and that people are following those protocols. So for example, we normally would not staff our parent and taught skates, adult and senior, indoor track, outdoor rink, those elements, but we have been, in order for us to be able to operate those programs when we can, we have had those staffed. So that has impact with regards to our programs. Our estimated budget does assume some variance of facility operations for 2021, as revenues and expenditures will be dependent on permitted reopening timelines and restrictions in effect. Staff will continue to do their effort to make sure that those balances are as best as we possibly can, just like we did for 2020. Available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. That's once again a very COVID affected 2020 and hopefully not as COVID affected 2021. Hopefully. Questions? Councillor Andreessen, go ahead.
Hi, thank you through you, Chair Dave. Just to Amy to extend my thanks again for all the efforts from your department and from you, of course, in terms of most specifically our trail system and our green spaces. I think this is something that we can truly celebrate as a municipality. These kinds of services, really, the parks and the trail system is just truly amazing for our community during these very, very difficult times. And I don't think we ever realized how important they would be until now we are in these very difficult times where we can use them more than we ever have. And I know people are really appreciating it. And I think it just provides more incentive for us as a municipality to continue that great trail system and look at, even moving forward to enhancing it even more, because I think it really touches every citizen. It gives every opportunity for everyone in the municipality to engage in that system of trails. So thank you again for your leadership with that, and with all the efforts that your team has done to continue to maintain them so well.
Thank you, Leanne. And once again, Amy, it is great to see that the trails used so much, and it'd be interesting to see, to do a survey someday of the people that are out there, of how many people prior to COVID used the trail system, and now that they're either working from home or not as busy, that they do have time to use our trails. So, and the trails are much more appreciated. I know that. Any other questions for Amy at this point? Councillor Seiler, go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Amy. Just one question. Watching the news tonight on the new shutdown, exercise was a big topic. So would our walking track fall into place that we'd be able to use it at our arena for exercise?
Currently, under this situation we're currently in, we are unable to open our facilities for indoor recreation use.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And that's yeah, one of these things that could change in a few weeks or a month again. And it's good to know that Amy's on top of stuff like that. And you're right, Terry, as soon as we can get that walking track open, we will, but under the current system, we can't. So any other questions for Amy? Great. Thank you, Amy, for a great presentation, and hopefully you have a less COVID year on the programs this year. Thank you. We have covered item 4.12. Moving on to item 5, council direction, council comments and direction. So council, you've heard from everybody. We've been through it all. We are currently sitting at 3%, of which 2.4% of it comes from growth. So on our assessments, which are not moving this year, we would be seeing a point, excuse me, a 0.6% increase on a average home or farm or whatever. So council, we are looking for some comments and some direction for staff. Anybody want to go first? There we go. Councillor Richardson, you're up.
Thanks, Chair Dave. I'm just wondering, they've been a little remiss in the past to get school board information and obviously the police. Do we have any dates about when they would be coming back, possibly, or any timelines?
Who do we look to for that? Fran or Chris? Fran, likely?
Through you, Chair Dave, we just received the school board numbers, tax rates today, and they're holding the line on residential and they're reducing business. So residential will stay at the rate that they were for 2020 and business will be at 0.88% of last year's. So, pardon me, 88% I guess it would be. So I feel this is a good news and that therefore I don't see that there'll be a negative impact for residential, and it will be a positive impact for business.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Mayor Todd.
Thanks, Dave. I think there are a few things that we have to give a little bit of consideration to with regards to this budget. The first is that, as the CAO's report indicates, there has been an allocation of about $100,000 for COVID relief. I am actually concerned that that is inadequate to the task and would be a lot more comfortable if our COVID allocation was about 1% of that sort of $15 million window that we usually talk about. So I'd rather see that at 150,000, just on a hunch about the kind of year that we may well have ahead of us. I acknowledge that the province and that the feds may continue to bring forward money to the table for COVID relief, and that would be a great blessing to us. But at the same time, I wouldn't count on it. And I think that we're only as good as Plan B when it comes to these kind of things. So I would prefer if staff would bring forward an additional $50,000 in the COVID relief line item. As well, I think we need to talk as a council, and I believe, Councillor Barron's raised it during a council meeting when we saw the business plans of the organization. I think that's the next step here. We need to have a careful review of the business plans. When I did some sort of back of the napkin math, and I'm counting about somewhere between 10 and 14 new positions that would be required to achieve the elements that have been outlined in the business plan for our community. And that includes both project and ongoing work. That's concerning because if we don't allocate for that or move towards fixing that, we're going to continue to aggravate the problem of staff overload, and there are consequences for that. So I believe that it's incumbent on the budget committee or council in either guise to look again carefully now through the business plans of the departments, acknowledging that they represent an approach to the achievement of the strategic plan, which we as a council approved, and that should help inform our next steps with regards to staffing in particular, because I think if I'm following the bouncing ball, and I'll ask CAO Snell to correct me if I'm wrong, that the current budget includes staff allocation for approximately 2.5 full-time equivalents, but that's not really getting all that far towards that 14, if that's the accurate outside number for staff corrections that may be needed to achieve our strategy. So, I'll leave it with that, but I think that we're going to have to be serious about thinking about taking a step forward on allocating more funds to staff, and that will impact the levy. There's no question about it.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Chris, do you want to comment on that at all?
And so just to be clear, what we're presenting is the 2.5 staff are sort of already we're already in the budget in some ways, except for maybe the half IT person, which Fran has put in her operations budget. Plus, we have an additional 200,000 to help close that staff, to help close that. And we haven't really had a plan. We haven't sat down as a management team group to allocate what that group looks like, or where those services are needed immediately, or even how many positions that looks or could include, depending on the type of people that we require. So certainly I agree with what Mayor Todd has said, and we have put 200,000 away to start that process, and we'll, with that money, if it's approved by council, we'll bring back a plan for that for 2021. But I certainly agree with what the mayor's saying. We may need to increase that again, depending on what our business plans look like for 2022.
And that 200,000, Chris, is already in the number that 0.6% or the 3%. That 200,000 is in there, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Dave, and I appreciate Mayor Todd's comments, and I need some more time to think about that before I respond. But the point that I was going to raise is one that we talked about last Monday with the budget team. Just for everyone's information, I think, Fran, we were just going to confirm the consumer price index or the cost of living for 2021, just so everyone's aware of that. Did you confirm that number, Fran?
I'm sorry, Ellen. It is one, I believe, 1.43% for salaries. For other items in the municipal basket, so to speak, yeah, I would say it's all over the map. I think you brought up the fact that fuel is down, insurance is up, COVID's mixed in there. It's hard to sort of just grasp what our cost of living, so to speak, in a municipal platform is, but certainly when the salaries that we're referring to, yes, we would apply that, have applied the 1.43, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
And that is arrived at by using the consumer price index.
Yeah. And we actually follow the county, right, Chris, on that one?
That's correct. We use the same months as the county uses now, and have the same COLA figure as the county, and we use it is based on the consumer price index for the province of Ontario.
Thanks, Chris and Fran. Councillor Behrens.
Yes, thanks, Chair Dave. Just getting back to something that Mayor Todd mentioned about, I think it would be a good idea to maybe take a second look at those business plans, and we all understand that staff are very energetic and trying to make the municipality the best it can possibly be. The problem is, I think anyone in reading those plans understood that it was a very aggressive plan, and I'm just not so sure with the current economic outcome that we might have, call it fallout from COVID or anything else with some of our businesses suffering, that we can handle even adding 5 new people to the current organizational structure. So I think it would be a good idea for council to maybe sit down and ponder those business plans a little bit more closely, and maybe set some direction as to where we should go as well. I don't know if that would be helpful for anyone else. It would be helpful for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. And so more to that point is, how soon do we need to look at those business plans? Over the next couple of months, aiming for 2022, knowing that we're under, for the next month, we're under COVID, or likely the next month at least, we're under some pretty heavy COVID restrictions. So maybe Mayor Todd, you can weigh back in on this as to how soon you think we need to go through those in depth and with some extra thought.
I mean, I'm one voice of many in I'm amongst colleagues, but I would say that we should get on with it. I think we need to move that forward, and that we can bring portions of this if we want to sort of dole it out in spoonfuls at the next couple of council meetings. But I think this needs to get done, and I think it should to some degree coincide with this budget, because there are implications now that have to be addressed, I think, and holding off till 2022 budget is probably too late for some of the matters that we have to consider.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Todd. And we have, and Chris has put that $200,000 in there, which would be a start towards some of the business plan as to how we prioritize, should we prioritize some staff that would be covered off of that, and the rest of it we would need to possibly look at an amendment if it's brought in after we adopt this budget. Chris, you have some comments.
So I just, as staff, we've been through these a couple times, and so I think councils have the full business plans, and really where there's changes to be made is in when we talk about strategic projects and additional projects. So even if council on their own would kind of prepare to go through that list of each business plan and highlight the things that they think could be deferred or deleted, and then as the mayor suggested, we could sort of do a couple of these at the next upcoming council meetings to go through them. But if that work was done in advance by council individually, and then collectively seeing what was sort of a consensus among the group, that might be the way to sort of tackle this elephant, because it really is difficult when you look at, and I mean, as we created the strategic plan, they're all great ideas. There's not one of those strategic priorities that's a terrible idea. So it really is very difficult choices to start thinking, okay, what gets pared back. The other thing, we've already delayed our 5-year strategic plan by 1 year because we didn't do anything in 2020. I shouldn't say that. We didn't get the plan off the ground as soon as we thought we would because of 2020. So we already are pushing back year one into 2021. So we're going to be really crunched to really have this plan done by 2025. And maybe that's one thing. Maybe we push it back to a 2026 or 2027 plan as well. That's an option.
Yeah, I think
But
that sounds doable.
But if I could leave that for homework for council to take those plans that's been given, or we can distribute them even on their own, just go through and highlight or mark what you don't think needs to be done.
Okay, council, it sounds like there's an appetite for that. If we can put it on to one of our next, Pat and Chris can discuss what our next agendas, and the mayor, what our next agendas look like, and let's get some of it on there, and let's get through it and see if we can come up to a consensus. Any other comments, questions? We have the mayor would like to add $50,000 to the COVID relief line, fund, whatever it is. If there's appetite for that, we would should likely have it on as a motion, I would think. Any comments, Mayor Todd? Would you like to make that a motion to change that 100,000 to 150?
I think we should scale it up a little bit. I am anxious, and despite the fact, as I said a few moments ago, that I'm a colleague with all of you, I am closer to the day-to-day and am concern that we're going to need a little bit of flexibility around that budget. But I'm not convinced that 100,000 is adequate to do the tasks that lie ahead in the next 6 or 8 months.
Okay, so if we have a motion that says we will change the $100,000 up to 150,000 in the and I don't have my open in front of me, the COVID recovery, I think it was titled. Chris, is that what that was? The COVID recovery?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
COVID relief.
COVID relief fund.
Okay, so if we have a motion that we would up the COVID relief fund from 100 to 150,000. Mayor Todd, would you move that?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, would you second that?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Please use your chat function, everybody. Seeing none, anyone opposed to that, please let us know in the chat function. I'm not seeing any, Pat, so we will call that motion approved. Fran and Becky, you can add that change. Any other comments or direction from council? Thank you, council, for all of your thoughts tonight and everything. There's still some more work to do on this budget, but we are getting closer. We'll move on to item 6, then other. Under announcements, I wonder, Chris, could you make an announcement on the province's state of emergency yesterday and anything that it affects North Perth and / council?
Thank you, Dave. So just because many of our protocols were already in place around our staff workplace and how our staff have been following our internal protocols for the last few months even, but the changes aren't drastic within our organization. Now we are again reducing staff and in the office, and even opportunities for them to cross paths even. So we are again just re-looking at how we can reduce staff in the office, but reduce staff in other workplaces just so that they don't cross paths. But we basically are still trying to provide all the services we have in the past. Certainly childcare and emergency childcare still remain a strong component of our service delivery, as well as all the other essential services that that the municipality provides. As Chief Smith says, the fire department still does their role. Water department and public works are still performing their tasks, just as if 2021 was a normal year, but with all the additional stresses and complications that COVID brings. The one certainly department that is most impacted is recreation. You've heard Amy talk about that a little bit tonight, but we will be bringing back a report to council on Monday night regarding a plan, or for council to make a decision on a plan for the future of our arena ice for 2021. So we're just in the midst of doing some data collection and surveying of our user groups and what other municipalities around us are doing, but we'll be bringing that forward Monday night for council to consider.
Great, thank you, Chris. Councillor Andreessen, do you have a question for Chris?
Yes, through you, Chair Dave. I just have a question around enforcement. And at this point, I believe that all the enforcement would be done by the Ontario Provincial Police in terms of any infringements or issues that are happening in our community that would be against what the emergency order is about. Unless, am I wrong, is there anything, any place for bylaw that would do any kind of enforcement by the municipality bylaw officers. If you could just speak to that, that'd be great. Thanks, Chris.
So we met today to discuss enforcement with the OPP and bylaw, and it's been decided just with our current capacity within bylaw that the OPP will be our enforcement agency with COVID-related issues. The province, and I think the province is realizing this. It's only the big cities that with what I would say significant bylaw enforcement departments have an ability to handle this sort of enforcement. So the OPP has agreed that they will be the main enforcement agency. We are asking all people with concerns regarding COVID that they call the 188 service number for the OPP. And if it's a work-related concern, the Minister of Labor can also be called. So those are the two enforcement agencies we're going to rely on is the OPP. And then if it's workplace related, we would ask that people call the Ministry of Labor. And we can provide those phone numbers to the public if they don't have them when they call us.
Great, thank you, Chris, and thanks, Leanne, for that question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris on the COVID-19 update? Seeing none. Anyone else have any announcements for the betterment of North Perth? Not seeing any. We do not have a closed session tonight. So we'll move on to item 7, the confirmatory bylaw. I have a bylaw in front of me that says resolved that bylaw number 3-21 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and finally be passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Behrens, would you move that?
I'm not exactly sure I should, Dave,
That's right.
just because I declared a conflict.
Pat just gave me that look. Councillor Duncan.
I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson.
How about me? There's a hockey game coming on.
Yep, I'll second that. So
great, thank you. Doug's in a hurry here. Okay, we have that moved and seconded. Any debate? Anyone opposed, please say so in the chat function. And I will, that is approved. Okay, we have done all the business on the agenda tonight. Thank you, staff, for the great reports. Thank you, council, for your attention. We will be meeting again in a couple of weeks to go over this some more, but lots of things to talk about tonight. I have any adjournment motion. Be it resolved that the budget meeting adjourns to meet again for general council business again on Monday, January the 18th. And could I get Councillor Rothwell to move that?
I so move.
And Councillor Seiler to second. We can hear him. He did say yes. Pat can hear him.
Yes, yes.
There he is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone opposed, please say so in the chat function. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, council and staff. Have a great night and stay safe.